Oh no, 17, that's right.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Golf Chat Show live. As you can see, I'm joined by Andrew Murray again. We're going to be talking about some really big points in tonight's show. Number one, we're going to be looking at the top golf courses in GB&I. Number two on our list, should the golf drive ahead be reined back? And number three, will the European Tour and the Ladies European Tour survive this? Because there's a massive talking points we're going to talk about here. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Right, thanks, Alex. Really good to see you again.
Yeah, it's every Monday this now, isn't it? It's a recurring thing.
Regular slot. Yeah, it's good. I like it. I'm enjoying it.
Well, so am I. I love having you on. It's great. I think someone commented last week, just literally like us having a conversation at a pub kind of thing, which is what we want to do.
Well, we are. That's exactly what we're trying to do, isn't it?
Apart from the fact I've got my water bottle.
I was going to say, if only we had a pint in our hand. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get into the first one here. Turnberry, you just told me, is being voted #1 golf course in GB&I. That's a place you know very well. But most
he says wearing his sort of proudly wearing his. Yes, it is a place I know well. You're right.
I want to get into, and this is amazing what you just said. You played 17 out of the top 20 courses in GB&I. That's some stat.
Yeah, I didn't realise I had until somebody just asked me on one of the social media platforms there. I think it was Lahinch, Waterville, and there was one other, I think, that was, I'll have to don my glasses for this, but Lahinch, Waterville, and can't remember, can't see without my glasses. I can't see quite, actually, to be fair. Lahinch, Waterville. Anyway, there's one other. Oh, Royal Dornoch. Sorry, yeah. I've walked around Royal Dornoch and not played it, so I was honest with myself there.
You could have snuck that one in there, couldn't you, really?
Yeah, I could have done. I could have gone up to 18. Yeah.
I know you're going to say Turnberry's your favourite golf course, but outside of that, what one's your favourite?
Well, Turnberry's the best on the planet, let alone blessed in the UK and Ireland. In my opinion, of course, an unbiased one. Since the changes, it's remarkable. It's just remarkable. I think, listen, those top five, you've got Muirfield in there. You've got, you've obviously got Royal County Down, which Royal County Down, for me, is absolutely fantastic. It's a wonderful setting. For me, there's just a couple of quirky blind holes that don't put it quite in the category of, top courses. But then there are blind holes at several of the top courses. St Andrews is in the top five. As I said, Muirfield as well. So I mean, it's a pretty strong top five there. That's got that lot in it. So listen, there's so many fantastic golf courses. Yeah. Turnberry definitely my #1 by a stretch. I'd put Birkdale in my top five as well. I think probably replacing perhaps one or two of the other ones, but it's terrific. It's a list where you could literally go to the pub, have a pint or two, and discuss that list for a couple of hours easily, couldn't you?
Easily. I want to get into St Andrews because a lot of people will be saying, well, that's the home of golf. That should be #1 on the list. But in my opinion, I've never been there. But is the golf course actually that good? Or is it the fact of the history, where it is? What is about it?
You've never been there, but except you're going to make comment like that.
Yeah, I am.
By the way, Portrush was the other one, #3, which has just gone up to #3 after the exposure of the Open and everything, which is fantastic as well. St Andrews is a very special place, full stop. Not just the golf course. The situation where the golf course is obviously in town. It's very much part of the town. It dominates the town. The 18th green's literally in town. The fact that you can walk across it with your pushchair and prams and all the rest of it on a Sunday makes it a real iconic sort of place. It's a people's place, I think, if you like. The golf course, if you took every hole as per se, no, it's not in the top 20 or 30 probably in terms of golf courses. I was going to say boring. It's not boring. It's a bit tedious in bits, but it changes so quickly with the wind, especially out near the loop, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Some relatively straightforward holes, or they couldn't be brutally difficult. So it's a quirky place. That's what it is. I think that would be a pretty decent expression. But it's such a historic, atmospheric place, Alex, that A, you've got to go, and B, you've got to go soon. And C, I could probably get you a game there. So why don't we? Why don't we do a show from there when we can get our clubs out of the boot?
100%. That'd be great. That'd be great. If you imagine we could do a show on the first tee live, or even we could actually do it where we walk around the golf course live. I reckon there'll be a way of doing that. 100%.
Well, listen, we keep saying these things, and life's too short, as we're finding out. So why don't you and I just do that? Because that would be a massive treat for me to take you there. But I think then you might change your view, and you might come back on this channel in a year's time or 6 months' time and go, you know what? I really get St Andrews. It's unbelievable.
Because 100%, we need to get that organised as soon as we're out of lockdown. I mean, we've got another 3 weeks here at least, I think, or maybe more. But as soon as that's lifted, let's do it. Let's drive up. Let's actually film the whole thing as a road trip. Let's go up there, play it.
Okay, no, let's do it. Listen, I'm all up for doing that. Yeah, my corporate diary is pretty quiet, as you can imagine, this year. So yeah. I'm gonna do loads of stuff like that.
Perfect. Well, let's get that in the diary as soon as we can. Now, you said about and St Andrews being almost depending on the wind. You see that in the Alfred Dunhill and the Open, don't you? Like when the wind's not blowing, people shoot ridiculously low scores. But when the wind's blowing, like level par for the top guy down.
I think that the other thing about the Dunhill, it tends to be played later in the year, and when it's played later in the year, the golf course tends to be a bit softer. So it needs to be hard and bouncy and a bit brisk and windy, much as it was when Oosterhuizen won. It was hard and it was running fast, and that's when links courses always come into their own. When the guys on a still day in October, not that you get that many still days up there, but you do sometimes, of course, then they do, and they know it so well now that they played the Dunhill there for 25, whatever it is, 25 years, haven't they? So a lot of the top European players know the course, they know the nuances of the lie of the land, and it is a course you need to play a couple of times to actually like it a bit better. I played the Open there. My last Open was played there, actually, 1990 Open that was won by Faldo. Faldo and Norman went head to head down the stretch down the last 2 rounds, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and Faldo won by 4 or 5 shots, I think, in the end, which was remarkable because the greens were like Rye Vita, they were horrid. And anyway, it's a fantastically atmospheric place. Yeah.
What's it like hitting it over the hotel? Is it pretty intimidating?
I had one in a butter dish in the conservatory one day. Yeah. I was at the PGA Championship. Anyway, I did hit it in the conservatory once. Well, it's pretty intimidating for somebody like myself, who's Joe ordinary golfer on the tour in those days. It was very intimidating. I wasn't a particularly big hitter. I wasn't certainly a high ball flight hitter. So, and I was a bit of a fader as well. So that was not a great tee shot. It was down the second fairway and into the rough on the left of the 17th fairway in the end. But yeah, it's an intimidating tee shot. And there was a player recently that hit the most phenomenal shot. Torbjorn Olesen. Actually, you don't heard of him for a while, have we? For various reasons. He put a swing on it to win his first Dunhill Links, I think, if I remember watching it on TV, thinking, this is now this.
Yeah.
You get your true colours when you stand on that tee in that tournament, in any tournament, but in down the stretch. And he put such the nicest, purest swing on it and bombed it miles down there and made the hole look relatively straightforward. I was also commentating for 5 Live when Daly won in 95, yeah. And he hit it in the playoff. There was a 4 holes that playoff, wasn't there? 4-hole playoff, the 1st, 2nd, 17th, and 18th. And in the playoff against Constantino Rocca, Daly hit it literally 125 yards off the front of the green. And the fairway, it was past the jigger in, which was, and that's it's bombed it miles down there, fast running fairway. I remember the fairway being absolutely at its narrowest point where he hit the ball. It was about 20 paces wide, if that. And it was such a terrific tee shot. I mean, you can't imagine being able to hit that tee shot under pressure.
The next question I'm going to ask you: what's the road hole bunker like? Is it actually that hard?
Well, listen, one might say your stature, if I may say.
I mean, I'm tall. I'm just sat down.
You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get out of it, let alone out of it. It's actually changed a lot over the years. The road hole bunker used to have no base to it, no flat base to it. There was the base was effectively a bit of an arc, and so you were very often on a tiny bit of a downslope, which made it literally impossible if you got it on the downslope. Got it upslope and open the face, actually not so bad, so long as the lie was all right. But I've seen people in there. Mark Moulan took 10 or something there one year in the Alfred Dunhill Cup when it was a team competition for Wales. Nakajima took 9 or so shots in the Open one year. I've taken a couple, I think, but it's very intimidating. Yeah, it's not as hard as it was, has to be said.
So moving on to our next topic here, and funnily enough, when you mentioned Faldo won the Open there, Faldo has come out with a statement recently, and I think it's really interesting about the fact that driver heads have got too big and they should get small. I'm going to read you out what he said. He put, and this is quoted on a golf website, I would love the size of the driver face to be really throttled back. Bring the skill back into ball striking. Back in the good old days where only a handful of great drivers with persimmon. Now there's only a handful of poor drivers. Now that's a pretty bold statement, isn't it?
That's true, though. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I can't agree more. When Metalwoods first came to the fore, Faldo was one of the last people to move to it, actually, and he always used to use drivers made by Harry Busson, and then he used a driver made by Mr. Willett, who was a Mizuno technician. Anyway, Faldo was a fantastic driver of the ball, very low spinning driver of the ball. When Metalheads came out, he felt that was much too much of an equalising factor and made Joe Ordinary players, like I would put myself in that category, better drivers of the ball than they were already. So I think that just takes the argument a bit further. I think he's absolutely right. And if I would take it one step more, if you reduce the cc of the driver head, it's currently 460 cc's, the size of the head. If you reduced it, say 20%, or then 20% 2 years later, then the manufacturers would soon get the idea that as they're getting smaller, the amateur golfers, who get an awful lot of pleasure, by the way, now, have been able to get the ball up in the air and bomb it with the driver as far as they can, almost as wide as they can. I think that those guys can still have fun playing with the 460s, and the tour guys can test themselves with a 400 or a 425 or whatever they decide they're going to get it down to. I think that's fair enough. But I think if they did that and they created a ball for the tour or for elite players that went 5% less this year and 5% the year after and 5% the year after, very quickly you'd reduce the distance that the guys are hitting it, A, with the ball and B, with the driver.
Because a lot of people are talking about, the guys are hitting it so far, and that's mainly people's factor, people's point when they're saying they need to rein it in, isn't it? But I think Faldo's going in the fact that actually people and tour players, the guys that potentially wouldn't be very consistent drivers, now are, because they've got so much fitness.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying. If it went hand in hand with the ball speed as well, that would be really, really good, because there's no question that, yourself, you're testing that latest driver that you're using. I'm using my latest version of the driver I'm using with Strixon, and you get one a little bit off the toe or a little bit top or bottom, then you get away with it, and people say good shot, and you lose 5 yards or 8 yards or whatever you do. Going back, and I know I'm harking back, back before you were born and all that stuff, but it is before you were born as well. That's
in anything.
Then listen, if you got it a bit out the heel or a bit off, it went 180 yards. It didn't go 230 or 240 like yours does now. It just dives out of the sky, and it doesn't get in the sky to dive. So it's a very, very different game. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't move with the times. I'm saying we should. But I think for the elite players, it would be a really good move.
And would you, as for a spectator, do you think that make it a bit more exciting? Because actually, you'd see these guys actually have to draw on all their skills rather than being able to get around the golf course and actually, oh, okay, like you said there, hitting out the heel still goes okay, out the toe still goes okay.
Listen, the golf ball spins less. The golf ball goes further. As the golf ball, if the golf ball was reined back a little bit as well as, so they did the two in tandem, I think you would see a difference. And it would still be exciting for the top players would still be the top players. They could play with their umbrella, and Rory would still be the best player in the world.
And then just touching on the fact that slipped off my chair there nearly. Just touching like I've had a pint nearly.
Well, that's what we're supposed to be having, aren't we?
Yeah, that's what we are having, guys. Just touching on that point of elite amateurs, because I think that's an interesting bit. Where at the point would you go, right, okay, I'm a scratch golfer at my golf club. I want to now compete in elite level. Do I have to now change my driver? Do I have to change my golf ball now? Because that could actually make that guy who plays off scratch or lady that plays off scratch no longer off scratch, changing to the golf ball.
Yeah.
So
you do. If you play in elite ranking amateur tournaments, you've got to play a specific ball with specific restrictions on the driver head. And listen, if it's the same for everybody, it's the same for everybody, isn't it? So for me, it wouldn't be that difficult to do that. And most amateur players with that sort of intent, if those are the rules of the game, those are the rules of the game.
Do you think this will happen? Do you think they will rein it back in? Do they have to?
I think they ought to rein the ball in. I definitely think they ought to rein the ball in as much as the driver. And I think the driver idea is a bit it's a bit foul though, isn't it? It's a bit out there, but and I think it's a good idea. I genuinely do. Whether it'll happen and whether the golf ball manufacturers and the manufacturers full stop have got so much power over the R&A, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why the R&A haven't done it in the first place. Well, then that's me thinking from a very logical, practical viewpoint of, why didn't they make the putter the shortest shafted club in the bag? They could have got rid of that whole anchoring long putter debate in easy decision. Make the putter the shortest shaft in the bag, full stop.
You see it now, don't you? And Kuchar's one of them. There's plenty of players now that are like coming up with some sort of way of anchoring against their forearm. And I know anchoring's not allowed, but to me, that is anchoring. If you've got it up against the forearm, jammed in there, and there's a lot of good players that do it. If you made it the shortest putter in the bag, or shortest club in the bag, that'd stop.
Well, it wouldn't stop because Bernard Langer did it. And Bernard Langer was suffered terrible yips. I mean, yips that you can't even watch on television because it's so painful to watch him. And he was such a fantastic player. And had he not been German, I'll bet any money we would never have heard of him again. He was so Germanic in his focus to actually overcome this terrible affliction, which it was. I mean, it was no question it was. He got to grip in his left forearm. He gripped his left forearm and the shaft of the club with his right hand. And if you watch him in the Ryder Cup, he missed the putt in Kiowa, having held a couple of fantastic ones the previous two, gripping left below right. But he wasn't just left below right; he was gripping his forearm with his right hand, as per that. And it was phenomenal how he invented everyone thought he was raving mad, but of course he wasn't.
Do you think that should be allowed now, though? If they've stopped anchoring with putters, a long putter like Scott used to use, or the belly putter?
Well, I don't think you could stop people's grips. If you made it the shortest club, then people might do that, and it wouldn't look quite so bad as a long putter. I just think the long putter, I know I'm old-fashioned, but it doesn't quite look right. It doesn't sit with me, that somehow. It's not quite in the spirit somehow.
No, I agree with that. I always think that there's always a debate when someone's got it. I know people are using a belly putter now and they're using it just as a long shafted putter, or there's guys that are still using it as a broom handle. But to me, it still looks like it's being anchored on some of these guys, and these guys
it's very close.
Yeah,
there was a bit of a spat in America, wasn't there, a couple of years ago on the American Champions Tour about Scott McCarron and Bernhard Langer. McCarron especially. There was a spat between the two players and their wives because one player's wife thought that McCarron was anchoring And it's really difficult. If you get a baggy shirt or a jacket on, it's really difficult to see whether you are or whether you're not.
Mm.
It's I just think it was an easy one for the RNA to sort of parcel off to one side and get on with what is important, and they didn't quite do that. And I have a feeling they're not going to do the same with the ball either.
No, I can't see them changing the ball. I can see more changes in terms of driver potentially, but then again, the manufacturers have such a big onus on sponsorship. They have such a massive impact on absolutely everything to do with the tour, and they will probably support the tour in a lot, financially a lot. So,
yeah, it's a tricky one. There's no question about that. But if you had a pro ball and you had a I don't know, the Strixon Z Star, for instance. I know I'm branding, but if you had the Strixon Z Star or the Pro V, and you had that ball that Shane Lowry uses, you can use that one. It goes 10% less than the Z Star Plus, or whatever we're going to call it. Which would the Joe ordinary amateur use? He'd use the one that goes further. You wouldn't be persuaded to use the one that goes less far, no. Unless he wanted to. And if he wants to, give him a choice, that's fine.
Yeah.
So the ball that Lowry plays, or play the ball that whoever it is, Tiger or Rory plays, or buy the one that goes a bit further. I think you could almost make a bit of another marketing story over that.
Yeah. I totally agree. I'm just reading a comment here. We've got a nice comment here from Keith McIntosh saying, "Hi Andrew, I love your specs." He says straight off.
Marine Haggard competitions in Didsbury.
And he says, a great chat with Alex. I will make a nice donation to one of your charities, like prostate cancer or the NHS charities, to join you both for a round at the St Andrews. That's what he says.
Oh, Keith. Keith is a really great supporter of charity golf in the Northwest. And I've only met him like 2 or 3 times. He's come to my pro-am. He's donated a couple of things to my pro-am over the years. One of which I wish I could have bought it myself, was leather-bound copies of every program of the United's treble-winning year, and in pristine condition and leather-bound, and it was terrific. And we got quite a lot of money off one of the clients for it. It was a treasure. And if you got the class of '92 to sign that, which I think they did, that was, it's a very worthy thing. But now that would be a treat. There you go. There's a charity, Captain Alex charity, around at St Andrews with you and I, and we get two clients, sponsors, contributors, whatever it is. We could have a competition and raise a few quid for a worthy cause, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we've just gone from playing me and you to doing that. I think that's an even better suggestion.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you just need one more now to throw a few quid in, and we'll go to the highest bidder. Sorry.
Okay, moving on to the next kind of point we spoke about before we came live. European Tour and Ladies European Tour. Now, these tours are heavily funded by sponsorships at each and every event. A little bit, well, kind of the opposite to what you see on the PGA Tour, because they have the FedEx Cup and they plow a lot of money into the PGA Tour. And I'm sure at the moment, FedEx are doing all right. So for me, the PGA Tour is probably going to be okay. But I honestly worry about the European Tour and the Ladies European Tour, because if they don't play events, they're not making money. And it's a big circus. There's a lot of people they employ.
Yeah. I think that I would say that's absolutely right. And I've been talking, I'm on the committee of the Seniors Tour, part of the European Tour. And I know 1 or 2 people on the board that are extremely worried. I know that the powers that be, Keith Pelly and Keith Waters and all those guys that are responsible for bringing sponsors to the table and then executing the events on behalf of them, they must be majorly worried. And they've got some serious brand names involved, from obviously the big Rolex Series events that are wound out throughout European golf that get some of the top brass playing. So Rolex will be looking at this in terms of value for money. Are they getting value for their whatever they put in, say 10, 20 million to those events? Probably not, because they're not getting any TV coverage, they're not getting any press, they're not getting any magazine coverage, there's no social media coverage on anything. So they must be worried. They must be surely worried. And apart from that, and I don't think America are are immune from this either, Alex, because the economic backlash from this is unknown. It's unknown to us. So how do we know what's going to happen in terms of a recession, is it, or a depression, or whatever, however best you're going to prove this. So I think when you're in a situation like we're in, I think it's a suck it and see, and we're all in it together, and we just literally keep your hands together and pray that everything's going to be all right. It'll never be the same. Keith Pelly's come out and said that on the European tour. It won't be the same as it was. There'll be smaller fields. They'll be behind closed doors, so effectively no spectators for the first foreseeable anyway. And it's a changing world. I think it's going to be a big changing world because, and the other thing is, of course, people aren't going to be able to travel quite so freely across the globe and as freely as they did to travel and play an event. So some countries are going to be behind others. South Africa might be behind, Asia, and do we play the South African Open? No, because we can't go there, and Asian players can't play, and it's a minefield, and it's almost a write-off year, really. But they'll get some golf done somewhere for us to watch and enjoy on television, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But then there's the whole raft of how many cameramen and the TV crews and commentators. It's a
spider's web of problems, isn't it?
Well, it's a big circus, and I agree. I think there's going to be some big issues with sponsors and stuff not getting value, and nobody's insured for any of this.
No. Do you see them playing for smaller prize funds then?
Yeah, I think there will be. I don't think there's any question about that. They'll play less people for less money.
And for me, like you said there, sponsors are probably going to look at it and go, well, actually, last year we had quite a lot of spare money for marketing. Actually, we're going to cut the marketing budget now. So we can only put X in. And that's a massive knock-on effect down the line, because then that probably affects Challenge Tour as well.
It'll certainly affect it'll affect the Seniors Tour, or the Stay Shore Tour as it's known obviously now, but and it'll affect the Challenge Tour, and it'll affect the Ladies Tour as well, and all those lesser tours will get less of a smaller pie. So opportunities for the players is going to be less, money's going to be less, and the expenses are probably going to be high, if not higher, than they were before.
Yeah, because if there's not as many airlines flying, then
supply demand up. Yeah. So it's a worrying situation for sport. I mean, this is not just golf, by the way. This is cycling, and this is athletics, and this is obviously the big story over here is at the moment is the football, and when is it going to get finished and when is it not, and all that stuff. So
I think we're all hoping it doesn't, just to put that out there.
Well, if you're a United fan, yeah. Not a United fan, you want the season finished, but season not finished, null and void. No, that's not quite true.
No, they've played some football, Liverpool, to be fair. Look, can you see the European Tour and the PGA Tour coming together on this? If that was like a scenario where they said, like, right, look, for the next 5 years, say we're going to make it smaller fields, or we're going to hold a bit, or you could say bigger fields on 2 golf courses nearby, a little bit like they do in South Africa early in the season, the European Tour. They have like 160 players, and they play 2 golf courses, a cut on the Friday, a cut on the Saturday. Could you see that coming together to help save either tour?
You put one out there, didn't you? That was good. That was a real left field. I don't think that.
Done that. We thought about that.
No, I didn't. I think it's an interesting concept. I don't think it'll happen because of the number of different countries involved within Europe in terms of the different taxations, the different languages, the different cultures, the different opportunities for the players in France and the players in Spain and the players in Africa and the players, in the wherever the federations are pooling players from. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Europe will stay Europe.
Yeah, but I think it will. But then at the same time, I was just thinking about it the other day and saying, if there's a last resort for them, they said, right, look, we need an injection of income from either side. One's not going to let the other drop, is it? Because they sort of rely on each other. Even though they are competitors, they sort of do rely on each other as well.
Yeah, I can see your point. I don't think it's going to happen but I can see the point. Yeah, I mean, there might be some American. Don't forget this recession is depression, whatever the analysts are going to call it, whatever is the fallout anyway of this. is going to affect, a lot of big organizations as much as small organizations. So all the big American corporates are going to be hit hard. So in terms of sponsors, whether it's Boeing or Chrysler or all the big multinationals, General Motors and all the massive companies in America that support golf, there's going to be as many around the globe, and certainly from the Far East, that are going to be suffering as well. So I think smaller funds and multi-sponsorship is going to be more the way, really.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, hopefully it doesn't come down to any of that at all. On to our final point. I know the other day on social media, you live about 5-minute walk from Lim Golf Club and you're walking around there. Now, are most golf clubs keeping up to date in terms of keeping the green staff out there and keeping the course maintained? What does it look like?
It looks fantastic, I have to say. I'm cycling down there as well, which is even better. And I'm cycling round the course, not on the greens, obviously, before you tell me off. We've got there's a small group of people that are trying to make sure that the course is looked after and not. Obviously, we'll welcome non-members to walk round and enjoy the peace and quiet, and it is completely peace and quiet. We'll allow people to do that as non-members, of course. Come and enjoy the scenery and everything, the peace and quiet. What we don't want is people playing football on the 12th green, which is what happened a couple of weekends ago when a family were down there, which is fine. A family were down there, but they could have played anywhere but on the green. And so there's a few people that are doing a bit of a rota of 1 hour on, 1 hour, 1 hour a day, basically, 1 hour that you're allowed, and go around and a couple of 2 at a time, and we just cycle around or walk around and just make sure that everything's okay and there's no vandalism taking place, and the course is looking a picture. And I've seen pictures that a friend of mine from Delamere is sending me, that looks a picture. I'm doing a course inspection at Didsbury tomorrow with the greenkeeper, and that's something that I think that clubs may or may not get into, a bit of the consultancy, get somebody who's, I wouldn't say been there and done it, but somebody of my experience perhaps, that might say, you know what, it might be an opportunity to move this tee to here, or move that tree, or can we take that tree out, or have you ever thought about making it with the fairway going this way or that way? So I'm doing a course walk tomorrow at Didsbury, which is going to be interesting, because the minute that courses looking to get another pair of eyes looking at the courses, they see them, slightly differently, an unbiased viewpoint, really.
Yeah, because a lot of people who are members at a golf club will, it's the holy grail. It is.
Yeah, and they don't like someone coming in, whether it's me or anyone else, going, actually, that bunker, you need to lose that bunker. That's the bad bunker. What do you mean it's a bad bunker? It always, so you've got to just. But I think so. In my role down at Lim, and I'm a member there, and I cycle around and look at it. It looks a picture. Everywhere needs a bit of growth. Obviously, we need a bit of water, but all the blossoms out on the trees, the fairways are being mown. There's no divots and there's no pitch marks, pitch marks and divots are my pet rant. So it does look a picture. Every course must be pretty well the same. They've got skeleton green staff. We know that, but they're doing a great job. And it would be nice to get out, but we can't get out at the moment. And everyone says, it's safer playing golf than going to the supermarket. It might be, but the rules are the rules, and then we've just got to accept the fact that it is what it is.
I saw on social media earlier today in Germany, some of the golf courses opened up, and it was really good actually what they've done. So they've done it's like a foot circle around the hole. They turn the taking the cup out. So if you hit the cup and it stayed within that foot circle, that was you hold the putt. That was it. Which is
great.
A great idea. Like, so you don't have to flag, you have to do anything. Don't have to get close to it at all.
Yeah, great idea. Really good idea. There are some very innovative ideas coming out. The first thing that I thought, and when I saw that they'd moved the bunker rakes out of the bunkers, and you just rake it with your foot like you used to in the old days. I mean, who thought, well, that's a great idea. Don't touch the flag. The hole out. I think that's a brilliant idea. The circle around the hole of a foot around it, and if it's going too hard and ricochets out of the circle, you'd not hold it. Is that how it works?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah,
I thought it was brilliant.
Very good. Yeah. Now that would improve your pace putting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and it's not my forte. That as Tom.
Yeah, listen, if you played at 10-minute intervals and there's somebody policing people going to the tee, we don't want people all accumulating at one point on the tee. 10-minute intervals in twos, park 2 spaces away from each other in the car park, etc., you could get golf courses open in time. It might be 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks or whatever it is away. They're not going to open clubhouses and pro shops though, and it's the income of the fallout from this, from income for the golf club itself. And you know, you and I can go and play at our golf clubs. That's one thing, but we're not contributing to the running of it.
No.
And after you've paid your membership fee, so you know the pros the pros are being devastated by this. By the way,
it's scary, isn't it?
I've seen 1 or 2 brilliant things on social media where clubs have encouraged members to buy lessons off the pro and buy vouchers. So at least it keeps the pro ticking over. And, you know, a couple of pals of mine have had people phoning up saying, you know, we know you must be struggling. Come and buy 100 quid of the lessons and I'll have them when we can, which is brilliant. But, you know, I was in that fortunate position, are they? So
no, not at all.
Tough gig, as they say.
Yeah. Just hopefully, to be honest, it's bizarre. I was saying to my girlfriend Emily that because I'm doing these live shows, I mean, it feels like it's gone pretty quick because I've got into a routine of doing this. So hopefully, if guys are watching this, it sort of speeds it up for everybody else.
Well, hopefully we give everyone a bit of a taste. And the courses are looking great. Everyone sees stuff on social media these days. And, you know, we will get out of this. As Captain Tom said, you know, the clouds will blow.
That was unbelievable, that.
By the way.
Thanks so much for your time. Thank you.
Really good chatting, and see you soon.
See you soon. Thanks very much, guys, for joining in and all the questions this afternoon, or this evening, I should say. We are back tomorrow at 6 p.m. If you've not already, guys, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers, all.